Why did a warning from a man everyone ignored save my life, and quietly ruin the people who thought I was invisible? By the time the truth came out in a courthouse lobby, the people watching me had already lost their leverage. They just didn't know it yet. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. I bought my coffee from the same cart every morning. Same time, same corner, same courthouse steps where Leon sat with his back against the stone pillar and his coat folded under him like a cushion. He was older than most people realized, 67, though his face carried more years than that. The cold had carved lines into his skin that made him look like a monument himself. "Morning, Leon," I said, handing him the second cup. He took it without looking up. Steam curled between us in the October air. "You're predictable, Sorren." "That a bad thing?" "Depends who's counting on it." I waited. Leon didn't waste words. If he said something, it mattered. He finally looked at me. His eyes were sharp, clearer than they had any right to be after sleeping on granite for the better part of a decade. "Don't take your usual route today." "What?" "The one through the plaza. Take the long way around." I frowned. "Why?" "Because I'm asking." That wasn't an answer, but Leon didn't give answers unless you earned them. I'd brought him coffee for 3 years. We talked about weather, about the pigeons, about the way the courthouse lawn changed color in spring. We didn't talk about his past, and he didn't ask about mine. "All right," I said. He nodded once and turned his attention back to the street. I walked the long way. The office was 12 blocks from the courthouse. Normally I cut through the plaza, past the fountain and the benches where the lunch crowd gathered. Today I stayed on the outer streets, where the buildings blocked the wind and the sidewalks were narrower. It added 10 minutes to my commute. 10 minutes I spent wondering why a homeless man cared about my route. By the time I reached the office, I'd convinced myself it didn't matter. I was wrong. The reception area smelled like burnt coffee and floor polish. The front desk was mine, had been for 6 years. I set my bag down, logged into the system, and checked the morning schedule. Marta Klein walked past without slowing. "Morning, Marta." She stopped, turned, looked at me like I'd interrupted her thoughts. "Sorren, right, you're here." I smiled. "Every day." She didn't smile back. Marta was operations manager, which meant she managed people who managed people. I was 3 tiers below her in the organizational chart, and she made sure everyone remembered it. "There's a delivery coming at 10, she said. "Make sure it gets logged." "Will do." She walked away. I heard her heels click down the hallway, heard her voice rise as she greeted someone else with actual warmth. That was normal. I was background noise. I knew that. I'd known it since my second week when I realized that people looked past me instead of at me. I didn't mind. It made the job easier. But lately something had shifted. I couldn't name it, couldn't point to a single moment and say, "That's when it changed." But there were small things. Glances that lasted a half-second too long, conversations that stopped when I walked into the break room, a sense that I was being cataloged. I opened my email and saw the usual clutter. Meeting reminders, policy updates, a note from HR about updated badge protocols, and then, at the bottom, something I didn't recognize, a calendar reminder. Review Q2 access logs, 11 Huanqiao a.m. I didn't remember setting that. I didn't even know what Q2 access logs were. I stared at the screen, then I deleted it. The morning passed in its usual rhythm, phone calls, package deliveries, people walking past my desk without saying my name. I logged the 10 o'clock delivery like Marta asked. I filed 3 requisition forms. I made fresh coffee in the break room and listened to 2 account managers complain about client delays. At 11:15, Marta appeared again. This time she wasn't alone. Owen Halvors walked beside her. He was tall, square-shouldered, and carried himself like someone who'd spent time in uniform. He hadn't. I'd looked him up once, out of boredom. He was a corporate security contractor. Background checks, internal investigations, compliance audits, the kind of person companies hired when they didn't trust their own people. He looked at me the way you'd look at a chair. "This is Sorren Valden," Marta said. "Front desk." Owen nodded. "How long have you been here?" 6 years. "And you handle reception, phones, deliveries?" "Yes." "Access logs?" I blinked. "I don't generate them. I just use my badge like everyone else." "Right." He glanced at Marta. "Background noise." She smiled. "Exactly." They walked away. I sat there, hands still on the keyboard, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Background noise. I'd heard Marta say it before. She'd used it in meetings, in emails, in casual conversations when she thought I wasn't listening. Sorren's fine. He's just background noise. It was her way of saying I didn't matter. But Owen Halvors didn't work in metaphors. When he said background noise, he meant something else. I pulled up my email again and searched for the deleted reminder. It was gone, but someone had sent it. And someone wanted me to see those access logs. I stood up, walked to the supply closet, and pulled out my phone. I didn't use it at my desk, company policy, but the closet had no cameras. I opened a browser and searched for Q2 access logs. Nothing useful. I tried corporate access logs audit. Still nothing. Then I searched Owen Halvors' background. The results were sparse. A LinkedIn profile, a few mentions in industry newsletters, one article about corporate fraud investigations. I clicked on the article. It was 3 years old. A logistics company in Pennsylvania had been caught funneling contract payments through fake vendors. The scheme had lasted 18 months before an internal audit caught it. The key to the fraud had been access. Someone with low-level credentials had been used to authorize transactions without knowing it. The article didn't name the person, but it described them as an administrative employee with routine access to financial systems. I closed the browser. I thought about Leon's warning. I thought about the calendar reminder I didn't set. I thought about Owen Halvors calling me background noise. And I realized something. I wasn't invisible because I was forgettable. I was invisible because I was useful. When I left the building that evening, I noticed the man standing across the street. Dark jacket, hands in pockets. He was pretending to look at his phone, but his eyes followed me. I kept walking. At the corner, I glanced back. He was still there. I took the long way home. I didn't sleep well that night. My apartment was small, one bedroom, a kitchen barely wide enough to turn around in, and a window that looked out onto a brick wall. I'd lived there for 8 years. It was quiet. It was mine. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and a notepad beside me. I was trying to remember, trying to piece together the last 6 months, looking for the moments I'd missed, the conversations I'd ignored, the patterns I hadn't seen. Marta had started treating me differently in June, not hostile, just absent, like I wasn't worth acknowledging. Before that, she'd been neutral, professional. She'd asked me to handle things, and I'd handled them. She'd thanked me occasionally. She'd remembered my name. Then, in June, I became background noise. Around the same time, Owen Halvors started showing up. Not every day, maybe once a week. He'd walk through the office with Marta or with someone from finance, and they'd talk in low voices near the elevators or in the conference rooms with frosted glass. I'd assumed it was normal. Companies hired contractors all the time. But now I wasn't sure. I opened my email archive and started searching. June 15th, a company-wide memo about updated security protocols. All employees were required to reset their passwords and reauthorize their access credentials. I'd done it. Everyone had. July 2nd, another memo. Routine compliance review. All badge activity will be logged for Q2 audit purposes. I'd ignored that one. It didn't seem relevant. August 9th, a third memo, this one from HR. Effective immediately, all access to financial systems will require secondary authorization. I didn't have access to financial systems. I was front desk. Except, I stopped. I did have access, not direct access. But I had a badge. I had login credentials. And 6 years ago, when I'd first started, they'd given me a generic admin account for processing vendor payments. I hadn't used it in 5 years. But it still existed. I pulled up the company directory and searched for my name. There it was. Sorren Valden, Administrative Support. And beneath it, in small gray text, Access Level Tier 2 Financial Processing. I stared at the screen. Tier 2 meant I could authorize payments up to $15,000. I'd never authorized a payment in my life, but someone could have. Someone with my credentials. Someone who knew I wouldn't notice. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. The brick wall stared back at me. I thought about Leon, about the way he'd looked at me that morning, like he was weighing whether to say more. I thought about the calendar reminder. I thought about Owen Halvors asking me how long I'd been here. And I thought about Marta calling me background noise. It wasn't an insult. It was a strategy. The rain started around midnight. I listened to it tap against the window and thought about patterns. About the way certain things only made sense when you looked at them from a distance. I pulled out my phone and opened my work calendar. I scrolled back through the last 6 months, looking at my own schedule. Nothing unusual, same meetings, same tasks, same predictable routine. Then I opened the automated email folder. the one where the system sent notifications about password changes, login alerts, system updates. I'd been ignoring those emails for years. Now I read them. June 18th, 11:52 p.m. Your password was reset. If you did not authorize this change, contact IT immediately. I'd been home, asleep. July 9th, 6:23 a.m. Unusual login activity detected. Your account was accessed from an unrecognized device. I didn't start work until 8. August 3rd, 9:15 p.m. Same message. September 14th, 10:33 p.m. Same message. I counted 12 alerts total. 12 times someone had logged into my account when I wasn't at work. 12 times I'd ignored the warnings. I took screenshots of every alert and saved them to a folder on my desktop. Then I did something I'd never done before. I logged into the company VPN from home. My credentials still worked. I navigated to the financial system, the one I'd never used, and looked at my transaction history. The screen loaded slowly. Then I saw it. 15 payments, all made in the last 4 months, all authorized under my name, June 18th. $15,000 to Halvors Solutions, LLC, July 9th, $12,000, same vendor, August 3rd, $10,000, September 14th, $15,000. The pattern continued, small amounts. Always under the threshold that would trigger automatic review, I added up the total. $193,000, all of it processed using my credentials, all of it while I was somewhere else. I took screenshots of every transaction and saved them with the login alerts. Then I logged out and sat in the dark. The rain had stopped. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I thought about what this meant. Someone had been using me for months, using my access, my credentials, my invisibility, and when it all came apart, when the audit found the missing money, I would be the one holding the bag, the perfect scapegoat, background noise. I opened my laptop again and started searching for Halvors Solutions, LLC. It took me 20 minutes to find the business registration. The company was registered in Delaware. The filing date was 2 years ago. The registered agent was Owen Halvors. I sat back and stared at the screen. Owen had created a fake vendor. Marta had approved the payments. And they'd used my credentials to authorize the transactions. It was clean. It was simple. And if I hadn't started asking questions, I never would have known. I needed help. I needed someone who understood how this worked. I needed Leon. The next morning, I took the long way again. Leon was in his usual spot, but this time he was awake when I arrived. He watched me approach, watched me hand him the coffee, and then he nodded toward the bench beside him. "Sit." I sat. "You listened," he said. "I did." "Good." We drank in silence for a moment. The courthouse steps were empty. The morning shift hadn't started yet. It was just us and the pigeons. "You want to tell me why?" I asked. Leon tilted his head. "You notice things, Sorren. You just don't trust what you see." "What does that mean?" "Means you've been watched for months and you're only just now asking why." I felt my chest tighten. "Watched by who?" "The man who walked past you yesterday. Tall. Looked like he used to be somebody." "Owen Halvors." Leon nodded. "He's not alone." "Who's with him?" "Your boss. The woman with the sharp voice." "Marta. Her." Leon took a slow sip of coffee. "They've been positioning you." "Positioning me for what?" "To take the fall." The words hung in the air between us. I wanted to argue, wanted to say he was wrong, that he was just a man on the courthouse steps who didn't know how offices worked. But I didn't, because deep down, I already knew. "How do you know this?" I asked. Leon smiled, just a little. "I used to work for the city. Municipal clerk, 23 years. You learn to read people when you process their paperwork. That doesn't explain how you know about me. I still know people. I still listen." He set his cup down. "Your company's been under audit since May. Quiet one, internal. They brought in that contractor to find out where the money's going. And someone's been moving money, small amounts. 15,000 here, 12,000 there. Always under the threshold that triggers automatic review." I felt cold. Using my credentials. Leon didn't answer. He didn't have to. "Why me?" I asked. "Because you're forgettable. Because you don't ask questions. Because if it all comes down, you're the perfect person to blame." I looked at him. "You're saying Marta and Owen are setting me up." "I'm saying they think they are." "What's the difference?" Leon smiled again, wider this time. "The difference is, you're not as forgettable as they think." He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Dates," he said, handing it to me. "Every time money moved through your account. Every time someone logged in with your credentials when you weren't at your desk. I unfolded the paper. It was covered in neat handwriting, dates, times, amounts. Where did you get this? I told you. I still know people. I stared at the list. June 18th, July 9th, August 3rd, September 14th. All dates I'd been at my desk, all dates I'd logged into the system. But the times were wrong. June 18th, 11:47 p.m., I'd been home. July 9th, 6:23 a.m. I didn't start until 8. August 3rd, 9:15 p.m. I'd left at 5:30. They used my credentials when I wasn't there, I said. Leon nodded. And if you don't do something, they'll make sure it looks like you were. I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. What do I do? You stop being invisible. Leon stood up slowly, brushing coffee grounds off his coat. There's something else you should know, he said. What? They're planning to move everything soon. Finish the scheme and close it out. Once they do, the trail gets harder to follow. How do you know? I heard Owen talking in the plaza. He was on his phone. Said something about wrapping it up by the end of the month. I looked at the date on my phone. October 28th. 3 days. What happens if they close it out? They delete the records, they cover their tracks, and when the audit finds the hole, all the evidence points to you. Leon put his hand on my shoulder. You need to move fast, Sorren. You need to get ahead of this. How? You already know how. You're just afraid to do it. He walked away before I could ask what he meant. I sat on the steps alone and looked at the list in my hands. Then I stood up and went to work. I didn't go straight to the office. Instead, I walked to a cafe 3 blocks from the courthouse. It was small, tucked between a dry cleaner and a tax prep office, and it smelled like cinnamon and burnt sugar. I ordered tea and sat in the corner with Leon's list in front of me. I needed to think. If Marta and Owen were using me to cover their tracks, they'd done it carefully. They'd picked someone who wouldn't notice, someone who wouldn't fight back. They'd picked someone invisible. But Leon had seen it, and if he'd seen it, someone else could too. I just needed proof, or real proof, the kind that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. I pulled out my phone and opened my work email. I scrolled back to June, looking for anything that mentioned access logs or system reviews. There, June 20th, an automated email from IT. Your password was reset on June 18th at 11:52 p.m. If you did not authorize this change, please contact IT immediately. I'd ignored it. I'd assumed it was a glitch. I kept scrolling. July 10th, another automated email. Unusual login activity detected. Your account was accessed from an unrecognized device on July 9th at 6:23 a.m. I deleted that one. August 4th, same message. September 15th, same message. I sat back and stared at the screen. They'd left a trail. Not a big one, not obvious. But it was there. Every time they'd used my credentials, the system had flagged it. And every time, I'd ignored it. Because I was background noise. I opened a new email and started typing. To IT support. Subject, access log request. Hi, I'd like to request a copy of my access logs for Q2 and Q3. I've been getting some automated alerts and want to make sure everything's correct. Thanks, Sorren Valden. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I closed my laptop and walked back to the office. Marta was waiting for me when I arrived. She was standing near my desk, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. You're late, she said. Sorry, I had an appointment. You didn't put it on the calendar. It was personal. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. Fine, just make sure it doesn't happen again. I sat down and logged in. Marta didn't leave. Something else? I asked. We're scheduling a mandatory review next week, she said. Internal audit. Everyone in operations will need to attend. All right. It's procedural, nothing to worry about. I nodded. She walked away. I watched her go, watched the way she moved through the office like she owned it, and I thought about Leon's warning. They think they've already won. At 3:15, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't answer any calls from internal lines today. I stared at it. Then I deleted it. 10 minutes later, my desk phone rang. The caller ID said, Conference Room B. I let it ring. It stopped after 6 rings. 2 minutes later, it rang again. Same caller ID. I unplugged the phone. At 4:30, I packed my bag and left early. No one noticed. I took the long way home. When I got to my apartment, I found an envelope taped to my door. No name, no return address. I took it inside and opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper, a printout of a bank statement. The account belonged to Halvors Solutions, LLC. and it showed deposits matching every fraudulent payment from my transaction history. At the bottom, someone had written in pen, "Follow the money." I sat down at my kitchen table and spread everything out in front of me. Leon's list of dates and times, my screenshots of the login alerts, my screenshots of the unauthorized transactions, the bank statement. It was all there, the evidence of a scheme that had been running for months, and I was supposed to be the fall guy. I thought about what Leon had said. "You need to get ahead of this." I knew what that meant. I needed to take this to someone with authority, someone who could act on it. But who? HR would go to Marta first. She was their point of contact for operations. It would do the same. Finance reported to the CFO, who reported to Marta. Every internal channel led back to her. I needed someone external. I pulled up my laptop and searched for corporate fraud reporting. The first result was a hotline, anonymous, run by a third-party ethics company. I read the description. Confidential reporting for suspected fraud, embezzlement, or misconduct. All reports are investigated by independent auditors. I wrote down the number, then I kept searching. I found the name of the company's external legal counsel, Victor Rell. He worked for a firm downtown. I wrote down his number too. Then I made copies of everything. I scanned Leon's list. I backed up all my screenshots to a USB drive. I photographed the bank statement from every angle. By the time I finished, it was past midnight. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I would make the call. Tomorrow, I would stop being invisible. The next morning, I called in sick. I'd never done that before. In 6 years, I'd taken maybe 3 sick days total. The HR automated system didn't even ask for a reason, just confirmed my absence and hung up. I waited until 9 o'clock, then I called Victor Rell's office. A receptionist answered. "Rell and Associates." "I need to speak with Mr. Rell. It's about corporate fraud." There was a pause. "May I ask who's calling?" "Sorren Valden. I work for one of his clients." "Which client?" I gave her the company name. Another pause. "Please hold." I waited. 2 minutes later, a man's voice came on the line. "This is Victor Rell." "Mr. Rell, my name is Sorren Valden. I work for your client. I have evidence of embezzlement and fraud, and I think it involves senior management." "What kind of evidence?" "Unauthorized financial transactions, forged payment authorizations, access log discrepancies, all of it pointing to a shell vendor created by a contractor." Victor was quiet for a moment. "Can you bring the evidence to my office?" "Yes." "Today?" "Yes." "Come at 2 o'clock. Ask for me at the front desk." He hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand. Then I got dressed. Victor Rell's office was in a glass tower downtown, the kind of building with marble floors and security guards who asked for ID. I gave my name at the front desk. The receptionist made a call, then handed me a visitor badge. 14th floor. I took the elevator up. Victor was waiting when I stepped out. He was older than I expected, maybe 50, with gray hair and a suit that looked like it cost more than my rent. "Mr. Valden," he said, shaking my hand. "This way." He led me to a conference room. Inside, there was a woman with a laptop and a man with a legal pad. "This is my associate, Ms. Brennan," Victor said, "and this is our investigator, Mr. Torres." I nodded at both of them. "Please," Victor said, gesturing to a chair. "Show us what you have." I opened my bag and pulled out the folder. I laid everything on the table, Leon's list, the screenshots, the bank statement. Victor picked up the bank statement first. "Where did you get this?" "Someone left it at my apartment." "Who?" "I don't know." He frowned but didn't press. Ms. Brennan picked up the screenshots. "These are login alerts from the company system?" "Yes. Every time someone accessed my account when I wasn't at work." Mr. Torres leaned forward. "And you're saying these transactions were processed using your credentials without your knowledge?" "Yes." "Do you have proof you weren't at work during these times?" I pulled out my phone and opened my personal calendar. I track my commute. I log when I leave, when I arrive, when I go home. Every day for the last 3 years. I showed him the entries. June 18th, 11:47 p.m. I'd logged leaving work at 5:28 p.m. July 9th, 6:23 a.m. I'd logged arriving at work at 7:52 a.m. August 3rd, 9:15 p.m. I'd logged leaving at 5:31 p.m. Mr. Torres wrote something down. Victor looked at me. "Who do you think is behind this?" "Marta Klein. She's the operations manager. She approved all the payments." "And the contractor?" "Owen Halvors. He owns the vendor, Halvors Solutions, LLC." Victor nodded slowly. "This is substantial. but we need to verify everything before we can act. How long will that take? A few days, maybe a week. I felt my stomach drop. They're planning to close everything out by the end of the month. If we wait, the evidence disappears. Victor exchanged a look with Ms. Brennan. We'll move as fast as we can, he said. But we need to do this right. If we go to the board without ironclad proof, they'll bury it. What do I do in the meantime? Go back to work. Act normal. Don't let them know you're onto them. They already know I requested access logs. Victor frowned. When? Yesterday. Did you get them? No. HR said they needed Marta's approval. Then she knows you're asking questions. I nodded. Victor stood up. All right, here's what we do. You go back to work tomorrow. You don't mention this meeting to anyone. You don't access any files. You don't make any unusual requests. You just do your job. And you? We start the investigation. Quietly. We'll pull records, verify the transactions, confirm the shell vendor. Once we have everything, we present it to the board. What if they move first? Then we go to the authorities. I looked at him. You think it'll come to that? Victor didn't answer right away. Then he said, I think you're in more danger than you realize. I went back to work the next day. The office felt different. Or maybe I felt different. Every conversation seemed loaded. Every glance felt like surveillance. Marta walked past my desk twice in the first hour. Both times, she didn't say anything. Just looked. Owen Halvors appeared around 10:30. He stood near the elevators, talking on his phone. His eyes swept the room, landing on me for just a moment before moving on. I kept my head down and worked. At 11, my desk phone rang. I'd plugged it back in that morning, didn't want to draw attention by leaving it disconnected. I answered. This is Sorren. Sorren, it's Daria from compliance. Do you have a minute? Daria Valden. I'd seen her around, but never really talked to her. She was younger than me, maybe 34, and always looked like she was analyzing something. Sure, I said. Can you come up to the third floor? I have a question about some vendor records. My chest tightened. Which vendor? Just some routine stuff. Won't take long. I hung up and walked to the elevator. The third floor was quieter than the main level. Fewer people, fewer voices. Daria's office was at the end of the hall. The door was open. Come in, she said. Close the door. I did. She turned her laptop toward me. On the screen was a spreadsheet. I've been reviewing vendor payments for Q2 and Q3, she said, and I noticed something odd. She highlighted a row. Halvor Solutions, LLC, 15 payments, all authorized by the same person. She looked at me. You. I didn't say anything. Except, she continued, the timestamps don't match your badge activity. Every single payment was processed when you weren't in the building. I met her eyes. I know. She leaned back in her chair. You know. Yes. And you didn't report it? I'm handling it. How? I hesitated. Then I said, I went to the company's external counsel. They're investigating. Daria was quiet for a moment. Does Marta know? She knows I requested access logs. I don't know what else she knows. Daria nodded slowly. She came to see me yesterday, asked if I'd noticed any unusual activity in compliance reviews. What did you say? I said no, but I've been looking. She turned the laptop back toward herself and pulled up another document. I found 6 more vendors just like Halvor Solutions, all registered to shell companies, all receiving payments under the review threshold, all approved by Marta. She showed me the list. I recognized some of the names from my own research. How much total? I asked. $418,000, give or take. I sat down. That's a lot. Yeah. Daria closed the laptop. I don't know why you're involved in this, Sorren, but I know you're not the one moving money. How do you know? Because I've been watching, and you're not smart enough to pull this off. I almost laughed. Thanks. I mean it as a compliment. This scheme required planning, coordination. You're just a guy at a desk? She wasn't wrong. So what do we do? I asked. We document everything. We make sure the investigation has what it needs. And we stay out of the way. That's it? That's it. The worst thing we can do is tip them off before the case is ready. I stood up. All right. Daria watched me walk to the door. Sorren? I turned. Be careful. People like Marta don't go down easy. I nodded and left. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I answered phones. I logged deliveries. I smiled at people who didn't see me, and I watched. Marta met with Owen twice, both times in conference room B with the door closed. At 4 o'clock, I saw Owen leave the building with a box under his arm. He didn't come back. When I got home, there was another envelope taped to my door. I took it inside and opened it. This time, it was a USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop. The drive contained a single folder labeled Halvor Solutions Banking Records. Inside were months of transaction records, payments in, payments out, account statements, and a PDF labeled Corporate Structure. I opened it. It was a chart showing the ownership of Halvor Solutions LLC. Owen Halvors owned 60%, Marta Klein owned 40%. I stared at the screen. They were partners. I copied everything to my own drive, then deleted the original files and destroyed the USB. Then I called Victor Rell. "We have a problem," I said. "What kind of problem?" "Marta's not just approving the payments. She's a partial owner of the vendor." Victor was quiet for a long moment. "How do you know?" "Someone sent me banking records." "The same person who sent you the bank statement?" "I think so." "Do you know who it is?" "No." Victor sighed. "All right, send me everything. I'll add it to the file." "When can you move?" "Soon. We're almost ready." "How soon?" "End of the week." "That might be too late." "It's the best I can do, Sorren. These things take time." I hung up. Then I sat in the dark and waited. The next day, Marta called a meeting. "All operational staff," the email said. "Mandatory attendance. Conference room A, 10 a.m. I arrived early. The room was already half full. Owen was there, standing near the front with his arms crossed. Marta walked in at exactly 10. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "I know this is short notice, but we need to discuss some upcoming changes." She pulled up a presentation on the screen. "As many of you know, we've been undergoing a routine compliance review. That review is nearly complete, and I'm pleased to say that we've identified several areas for improvement." She clicked to the next slide. One of those areas is access management. Effective immediately, all Tier 2 financial access will be revoked for administrative staff. My chest tightened. "This is a precautionary measure," Marta continued. "It ensures that only authorized personnel can process payments." She looked directly at me. "Sorren, this includes you. Your access will be suspended as of today." I didn't react. "Any questions?" No one spoke. "Good, thank you all." The meeting ended. I walked back to my desk. They were cutting me off. Removing my access meant I couldn't authorize payments anymore, which meant they were done using me, which meant they were about to close everything out. I pulled out my phone and texted Victor. "They just revoked my access. They're shutting it down." He replied immediately. "Stay calm. We're moving tonight." I put the phone away. And I waited. Nothing happened that night, or the next day, or the day after that. By Friday, I was starting to think Victor had changed his mind. Then, at 4:30 in the afternoon, I got an email. From Victor Rell, subject, meeting, Monday, 9 a.m. Sorren, please report to conference room A on Monday at 9 a.m. This is a mandatory compliance hearing. Do not discuss this email with anyone. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to my personal email and deleted the original. The weekend was the longest of my life. I didn't leave my apartment. I didn't answer my phone. I just sat at my kitchen table and went over everything in my head, the evidence, the timeline, the players. I thought about what would happen on Monday. I thought about what Marta and Owen would say, and I thought about what I would say. By Sunday night, I'd made peace with it. Whatever happened, I'd done everything I could. Monday morning, I arrived at the office at 8:30. The building was quiet. I went straight to conference room A. The door was closed. I could hear voices inside. At exactly 9 o'clock, the door opened. Victor Rell stood there. "Mr. Valden, please come in." I walked inside. The room was full. Marta sat at the head of the table. Owen was beside her. Victor was there. So was Miss Brennan and Mr. Torres. There were 3 other people I didn't recognize. 2 men in suits, 1 woman with a briefcase, and Daria sitting in the corner with her laptop. I took a seat near the door. Victor stood up. "Thank you all for coming. I'm Victor Rell, external legal counsel for the company. I've been retained to oversee an internal investigation into financial irregularities." He looked around the room. "This is a formal hearing. Everything said here will be recorded and may be used in subsequent legal proceedings." Marta shifted in her seat. "What irregularities?" Victor opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Over the last 4 months, he said, this company has paid approximately $418,000 to 7 shell vendors. All of these payments were authorized using the credentials of Mr. Sorren Valden, who sits before us now. He slid the folder across the table to Marta. Each payment was processed when Mr. Valden was not in the building. Each payment was approved by you, Ms. Klein. Marta opened the folder. Her face didn't change. I approve dozens of payments every week, she said. I can't verify every single one. These weren't just any payments, Victor said. They went to vendors that don't exist. Vendors registered to shell companies. Vendors owned by people in this room. He turned to Owen. Halvors Solutions, LLC. That's yours, correct? Owen didn't answer. Mr. Halvors, I'll ask again. Do you own Halvors Solutions, LLC? Owen's jaw tightened. Yes. And you received $193,000 from this company over the last 4 months? It was legitimate consulting work. Was it? Victor pulled out another document. Because I have your company's bank statements, and they show that every payment you received was immediately transferred to offshore accounts. He slid the document across the table. Owen stared at it. Victor turned to Marta. You're listed as a 40% owner of Halvors Solutions. Did you disclose that when you approved these payments? Marta's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Victor pulled out another document. Because I have the corporate filings. Your name is right here. He showed her. Marta looked at Owen. Owen looked at the floor. Victor sat down. Here's what happened. You and Mr. Halvors created a scheme to embezzle money from this company. You used Mr. Valden's credentials to authorize payments because he was low-level, forgettable, and unlikely to notice. You forged his signature on payment authorizations. You processed transactions when he wasn't in the building, and you planned to pin everything on him when the audit caught it. He looked at me. But Mr. Valden noticed, and he came to me. And now we have everything. Marta stood up. This is absurd. You have no proof. I have access logs. I have forged signatures. I have bank records. I have corporate filings. I have testimony from Mr. Valden and from Ms. Valden, who independently discovered the same discrepancies. Daria looked up from her laptop. I've documented everything. 6 additional shell vendors, all following the same pattern. Marta's hands were shaking. This is a setup. Someone's framing us. Who? Victor asked. Mr. Valden? The man you treated like furniture for 6 years? He turned to the others in the room. These are representatives from the board of directors, he said, gesturing to the 3 people I didn't recognize. They've reviewed the evidence. They've authorized me to proceed. One of the board members stood up. Ms. Klein, Mr. Halvors, you're both suspended effective immediately. You will surrender your badges and access cards. You will not contact anyone at this company, and you will cooperate fully with the ongoing investigation. Marta's face crumpled. You can't do this. We already have. The board member looked at Victor. Will there be criminal charges? That's up to the district attorney, but we're providing all evidence to law enforcement. Owen finally spoke. We want lawyers. You're welcome to retain counsel, Victor said, but you're not under arrest, yet. He stood up. This hearing is concluded. Ms. Klein, Mr. Halvors, please leave the building. Marta stood slowly. Her hands were still shaking. Owen grabbed his jacket and walked to the door. As he passed me, he stopped. You have no idea what you've done, he said. I looked up at him. I know exactly what I've done. He left. Marta followed. The room was silent. Then Victor turned to me. Mr. Valden, thank you for your cooperation. You're free to go. That's it? That's it. I stood up. Daria caught my eye. She nodded. I nodded back. Then I walked out of the conference room. The office felt different now. People were staring. Word had already spread. I went back to my desk and sat down. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Well done. I stared at it. Then I deleted it. I didn't know who'd been helping me. Leon, maybe, or someone else. It didn't matter. What mattered was that it was over. I logged into my computer and checked my email. There was a message from HR. Mr. Valden, please report to HR at your earliest convenience. I walked upstairs. Patricia Lorne was waiting. Mr. Valden, she said, please sit. I sat. Given recent events, we're making some organizational changes. Compliance is being restructured, and we need someone with institutional knowledge to help rebuild. She slid a folder across the desk. We'd like to offer you a position as compliance analyst. You'll work directly with Ms. Valden. Salary increase of 12%. I opened the folder. When do I start? Immediately. I signed the paperwork. Then I went back downstairs, packed up my desk, and moved to the 3rd floor. Daria was waiting. "Welcome to compliance," she said. "Thanks. You did good, Sorren." "I just paid attention." "That's all it takes." She handed me a stack of files. "Start with these. We're reviewing every vendor contract from the last 3 years. Flag anything suspicious." I took the files and sat down. For the first time in 6 years, I felt like I mattered. The investigation moved quickly. Within a week, Victor had compiled enough evidence to refer the case to the district attorney. Within 2 weeks, criminal charges were filed. Marta Klein and Owen Halvors were both indicted on multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The arraignment was scheduled for early December. I was called as a witness. The courthouse was the same one I'd walked past every morning for 3 years, the same steps where Leon used to sit. I looked for him that morning, but he wasn't there. I went inside alone. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, rows of benches that smelled like furniture polish. I sat in the gallery and waited. At 9 o'clock, the bailiff called the case. Commonwealth versus Klein and Halvors. Marta walked in first. She'd lost weight. Her suit didn't fit right. Owen followed. He didn't look at me. They sat at the defense table with their lawyers. The judge entered. Everyone stood. "Be seated." The arraignment took 15 minutes. The charges were read. Marta and Owen entered pleas of not guilty. Bail was set at $200,000 each. Then Victor stood up. "Your Honor, the Commonwealth would like to call Sorren Valden as a material witness." The judge nodded. "Proceed." I walked to the witness stand. The bailiff handed me a Bible. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." I sat down. Victor approached. "Mr. Valden, can you describe your role at the company?" "I was front desk, administrative support." "And how long did you hold that position?" 6 years. "During that time, did you ever authorize payments to vendors?" "No." "Did you have access to financial systems?" "Technically, yes, but I never used it." Victor pulled out a folder. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibits A through F, and payment authorizations bearing Mr. Valden's signature." The judge nodded. Victor handed me the first page. "Do you recognize this?" I looked at the form. June 18th. "I recognize the format, but this isn't my signature." "How can you be sure?" "Because I know my handwriting, and I was home at 11:47 p.m. I didn't authorize this payment." Victor showed me the rest of the forms. Same story, same forged signatures, same impossible timestamps. "Mr. Valden, did you ever give your login credentials to anyone?" "No." "Did you ever notice unusual activity on your account?" "Yes, I received automated alerts from IT about password resets and unusual login times." "What did you do when you received those alerts?" "I ignored them. I thought they were system errors." "When did you realize they weren't?" "When someone warned me." "Who warned you?" "Leon Kruger." Victor turned to the judge. "Your Honor, Mr. Kruger is also on our witness list." The judge made a note. "Continue." Victor looked back at me. "What did Mr. Kruger tell you?" "That I was being watched, that someone was using me as cover for fraud." "And what did you do?" "I started investigating. I requested access logs. I found the forged payment authorizations. I compiled the evidence and brought it to legal counsel." "And you brought that evidence to me?" "Yes." Victor nodded. No further questions. The defense attorney stood up. She was young, sharp-eyed, and moved like she'd done this before. "Mr. Valden," she said, "you claim you never authorized these payments, but you had access to the system, correct?" "Yes." "And you had the credentials?" "Yes." "So it's possible you could have processed these payments and simply forgotten." "No." "Why not?" "Because I wasn't at work when they were processed. The timestamps prove that." She smiled. "Timestamps can be manipulated." "Not by me." "But someone with admin access could manipulate them." "Yes." "And you had admin access." I looked at her. "So did Owen Halvors." She paused. Then she nodded. No further questions. I stepped down. The judge looked at Victor. "Next witness." "The Commonwealth calls Leon Kruger." The courtroom doors opened. Leon walked in. He was wearing the same suit I'd seen before. He moved slowly, carefully, and sat in the witness stand like he owned it. The bailiff swore him in. Victor approached. "Mr. Kruger, can you state your occupation?" "I don't have one." Can you describe your living situation? I'm homeless. I stay near the courthouse. And how long have you been homeless? 8 years. What did you do before that? I was a municipal clerk. 23 years. Victor nodded. Mr. Kruger, do you know the defendant, Owen Halvors? Leon looked at Owen. I do. How? I've seen him around the courthouse. He used to meet people in the plaza. What kind of people? Business people, lawyers, people who looked like they had something to hide. Did you ever hear any of these conversations? Some of them. What did you hear? Leon leaned back. I heard him talking about moving payments, about using low-level employees to authorize transactions, about keeping things under the threshold so nobody would notice. Did he mention any names? Not directly, but I knew who he was talking about. How? Because I pay attention. I saw him watching Mr. Valden. I saw the way people treated Sorren like he wasn't there, and I knew what that meant. What did it mean? It meant they were using him. Victor paused. Mr. Kruger, why did you warn Mr. Valden? Leon looked at me. Because he was the only person who saw me, he said. Everyone else looks through me. But Sorren looked at me, brought me coffee, talked to me like I was a person. He turned back to Victor. I wasn't going to let them destroy him for doing that. The courtroom was silent. Victor nodded. No further questions. The defense attorney stood up. Mr. Kruger, she said, you're homeless, you have no job, you have no resources. Why should this court believe anything you say? Leon smiled. Because I have no reason to lie. You could be lying to help Mr. Valden. Why would I do that? Maybe he's paying you. Leon laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. Look at me, he said. Do I look like someone who gets paid? The defense attorney frowned. You admit you overheard conversations, but you didn't report them. Why not? Because no one listens to people like me. So you waited until it was convenient. I waited until someone was ready to hear it. The attorney shook her head. No further questions. Leon stepped down. The judge looked at both sides. Anything else? Victor stood. The Commonwealth rests, Your Honor. The defense attorney stood. The defense reserves its case for trial. The judge nodded. Trial date will be set within 60 days. Court adjourned. The gavel came down. I walked out of the courtroom into the lobby. Leon was waiting. You did good, I said. So did you. I looked at him. Thank you for everything. Leon nodded. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe, but I wouldn't have known to look. He put his hand on my shoulder. You're not invisible anymore, Sorren. Don't forget that. Then he walked away. I stood in the lobby and watched him go. People moved around me, lawyers, witnesses, families. Nobody looked at me, but for the first time, I didn't mind. I walked out of the courthouse and went back to work. The trial was set for January 15th. I spent the weeks between the arraignment and the trial working, reviewing vendor contracts, flagging discrepancies, building cases that would never see the inside of a courtroom because companies preferred to settle quietly. Daria was a good boss. She trusted me, she gave me space, and she didn't treat me like I was invisible. The office had changed, too. People knew who I was now. They nodded when I walked past. They remembered my name. It was strange. For 6 years, I'd been background noise. Now I was the person who'd brought down 2 senior managers. I wasn't sure which version I preferred. The trial started on schedule. I was there for the first day, sat in the gallery and watched the jury selection, watched the lawyers argue about admissibility, watched Marta and Owen sit at the defense table and pretend they weren't scared. Victor called me on the 3rd day. We're presenting your testimony tomorrow, he said. Are you ready? I think so. Good. Just tell the truth. Answer the questions. Don't volunteer information. All right. I hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over everything in my head. The timeline, the evidence, the moment I'd realized what was happening. I thought about Marta calling me background noise. I thought about Owen looking at me like I was furniture. And I thought about how close I'd come to being the one on trial. The next morning, I put on my best suit and went to the courthouse. The courtroom was packed. Victor called me to the stand at 10:30. I swore in and sat down. Mr. Valden, Victor said, I'd like to walk through the timeline of events, starting in June. Did anything unusual happen that month? I received an automated alert from IT. My password had been reset at 11:52 p.m. on June 18th. I was home at that time. Did you reset your password? No. What did you do? I ignored it. I thought it was a system error. Victor pulled up a document on the screen behind me. This is the payment authorization form dated June 18th, 11:47 p.m. Is this your signature? I looked at it. No. How can you be certain? Because I know my own handwriting, and because I have time-stamped records showing I left the office at 5:28 p.m. that day. Victor showed the jury my badge logs. Mr. Valden scanned out at 5:28 p.m. The payment was processed at 11:47 p.m. He wasn't in the building. He turned back to me. Did this pattern continue? Yes. Over the next 4 months, I received 12 automated alerts. Each one corresponded to a fraudulent payment. And you ignored all of them? Until someone warned me. Who warned you? Leon Kruger. What did he tell you? That I was being used, that someone was processing payments under my name, that when the audit found the missing money, I'd be the one blamed. Victor paused. What did you do when you learned this? I investigated. I requested access logs. I found the forged authorizations. I discovered the shell vendor. And I brought everything to you. Victor nodded. Thank you, Mr. Valden. He turned to the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Valden is not the criminal here. He's the victim. He was used, manipulated, and set up to take the fall for a scheme he knew nothing about. He sat down. The defense attorney stood up. Mr. Valden, she said, you claim you were set up, but you had access to the financial systems, didn't you? Yes. And you had the credentials to process payments? Yes. So you could have processed these payments yourself? I could have, but I didn't. How do we know that? Because the evidence shows I wasn't there. She smiled. But you could have logged in remotely? I don't know how to do that. You could have learned. I didn't. Can you prove that? I looked at her. Can you prove I did? She frowned. Answer the question, Mr. Valden. I just did. The judge intervened. Move on, counselor. The defense attorney tried a few more angles, but nothing stuck. Finally, she sat down. I stepped off the stand. Victor called 3 more witnesses that day. The IT director, who confirmed the remote logins, the forensic accountant, who traced the money, and Daria, who explained how she'd independently discovered the same pattern. By the end of the day, the prosecution's case was airtight. The defense tried to argue that the evidence was circumstantial, that the signatures could have been forged by anyone, that there was reasonable doubt. The jury didn't buy it. They deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Marta Klein and Owen Halvors were convicted of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Sentencing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. I wasn't there for the sentencing. I didn't need to be. Victor called me afterward. Marta got 8 years. Owen got 10. I was quiet for a moment. Good, I said. You did the right thing, Sorren. I know. I hung up, and I went back to work. The weeks after the trial were strange. People treated me differently. With respect, with caution. Like I was someone who mattered. I still wasn't used to it. Daria promoted me to senior analyst in February. You've earned it, she said. I didn't argue. The company settled with 3 other employees who'd had their credentials misused in smaller schemes. Marta and Owen's fraud had been more extensive than anyone realized. By March, I'd helped uncover 2 more shell vendors and flagged 6 questionable contracts. The company was cleaning house, and I was part of it. One morning in late March, I walked to the courthouse steps with 2 cups of coffee. Leon was there. He'd been gone for months. I'd thought maybe he'd moved on for good. But there he was, sitting against the stone pillar like he'd never left. You're back, I said. For now. I handed him a coffee. We sat in silence for a while. I heard about the verdict, Leon said. Yeah. How do you feel? I thought about it. Relieved, tired, angry. Angry? That it took so long, that it almost worked. Leon nodded. But it didn't work. No, it didn't. We drank our coffee. What happens now? Leon asked. I keep working. I keep paying attention. I make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. Good. Leon stood up. I should go. Where? South. It's still cold here. I stood up too. Will you come back? Leon smiled. When someone else needs a warning. He walked away. I watched him disappear into the morning crowd. Then I finished my coffee and went to work. The office felt different now. Or maybe I felt different. People saw me. They listened to me. They trusted me. It was still strange. But I was getting used to it. Daria called me into her office that afternoon. We have a situation, she said. What kind of situation? Potential kickback scheme, facilities management. I need you to dig into it. She handed me a folder. I opened it and started reading. The evidence was subtle. Small payments, unusual timing, vendors that didn't quite make sense, but it was there. I'll start today, I said. Good. Let me know what you find. I went back to my desk and got to work. By the end of the week, I'd found the pattern. By the end of the month, we'd built the case. By April, 3 more people were suspended. The company was changing, and I was part of that change. I thought about Marta sometimes, about the way she'd treated me, the way she'd used me, about how close she'd come to getting away with it. I thought about Owen, too, about his arrogance, his carelessness, about the way he'd looked at me in that final hearing. You have no idea what you've done. I knew exactly what I'd done. I'd stopped being invisible. Summer came. The office felt lighter. The air conditioning worked better on the 3rd floor than it had at the front desk. I had a window now. I could see the parking lot and, beyond it, the city. I'd been promoted again in May, senior compliance officer. It came with a raise and a small team. I hired 2 analysts. Both of them were young, hungry, and paid attention. We worked well together. By July, we'd flagged 8 more questionable vendors and recovered over $200,000 in fraudulent payments. The board was pleased. Patricia Lauren called me into her office one afternoon. Sorren, she said, the board wants to meet with you. Why? They want to thank you, officially. That's not necessary. They think it is. The meeting was scheduled for the following week. I wore my best suit. The boardroom was on the top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, a table that could seat 20. There were 8 people waiting when I arrived. The chairman stood up. Mr. Valden, he said, thank you for coming. I nodded. We wanted to meet with you personally, he continued. What you did last year, uncovering the fraud, bringing it to our attention, that took courage. It saved this company millions of dollars and protected our reputation. He handed me an envelope. This is a bonus, a token of our appreciation. I opened it. Inside was a check for $50,000. I stared at it. Thank you, I said. You earned it. The chairman sat down. We also want to offer you a new position, Director of Compliance. You'd oversee all internal investigations and report directly to the board. I looked around the room. I accept. They smiled. The meeting lasted 20 minutes. When I walked out, I felt like I was floating. I called Victor Rell that afternoon. I just got promoted, I said. Congratulations, you deserve it. I wanted to thank you for everything. You did the hard part, Sorren. I just presented the evidence. Still, thank you. You're welcome. I hung up. Then I walked to the courthouse steps. Leon wasn't there. I sat down anyway and drank my coffee alone. I thought about the last year, about how much had changed, about how close I'd come to losing everything, and about the man who'd saved me with a simple warning. I never saw Leon again after that day in March. I looked for him sometimes, checked the courthouse steps on my way to work. But he was gone. Maybe he'd moved south, like he said. Maybe he'd found someone else who needed a warning. I hoped he was okay. I hoped he knew how much he'd changed my life. The summer passed. I settled into my new role, built my team, strengthened the company's compliance framework. By September, we were running smoothly. No major incidents, no new schemes, just steady, careful work. I liked it. One afternoon in late September, Daria stopped by my office. You have a visitor? She said. Who? Someone from the district attorney's office? I frowned. Why? They didn't say. I walked downstairs. A woman in a suit was waiting in the lobby. Mr. Valden? Yes. I'm Assistant District Attorney Morrison. Do you have a few minutes? Of course. We went to a conference room. She pulled out a folder. I wanted to update you on the Klein and Halvors case, she said. I thought they were already sentenced. They were, but we've uncovered new evidence. It appears their scheme was larger than we initially thought. We've identified 3 additional victims at other companies. I sat back. How much total? Over $1.2 million. I whistled. That's a lot. Yes. She slid the folder across the table. We're reopening the investigation. We may need you to testify again. All right. Thank you, Mr. Valden. She stood up. One more thing, she said. The homeless man who warned you, Leon Kruger. Do you know where he is? No, I haven't seen him since March. She frowned. We'd like to speak with him. If you hear from him, please let us know. I will. She left. I sat in the conference room for a long time. Then I went back to work. The new investigation moved slowly. I testified twice more over the next 3 months. Each time, I told the same story, the timeline, the evidence, the moment I realized I was being used. Each time, Marta and Owen's lawyers tried to discredit me. Each time, they failed. By December, the case against them was even stronger. They were facing additional charges. Additional time. Morrison called me in January. "They want to make a deal," she said. "What kind of deal?" "Full restitution to all victims, cooperation with ongoing investigations, extended sentences." "Are you going to take it?" "I think so. It guarantees they serve real time, and it helps us build cases against their associates." "Associates?" "We think there are others. People who helped them set this up. We're still investigating." I nodded. "Whatever you think is best." "Thank you, Sorren." I hung up. The deal was finalized in February. Marta Klein's sentence was extended to 12 years. Owen Halvors got 15. Neither of them would be eligible for parole for at least a decade. I felt nothing when I heard the news. No satisfaction, no anger, no relief. Just nothing. They were gone. The company was safe. My job was secure. That was enough. Spring came again, a year since the trial, 18 months since Leon's first warning. I walked to the courthouse steps one morning in March. It was a clear day, cold but sunny. I sat down with my coffee and looked out at the city. People moved past me, lawyers, witnesses, families. Nobody looked at me, but I didn't mind. I wasn't invisible anymore. I just wasn't interesting, and that was fine. I finished my coffee and stood up. Then I walked to work. The office was busy. My team had 3 active investigations. We were expanding. I spent the morning reviewing case files and preparing for a board presentation. At 11, my assistant knocked on my door. "Someone's here to see you," she said. "Who?" He didn't give a name, just said you'd want to talk to him. I frowned. "Send him in." The door opened. Leon walked in. He looked different, cleaner. He was wearing a coat that actually fit. "Leon," I said, standing up, "where have you been?" "Around." "The DA's been looking for you." "I know." He sat down. "I'm not here about that," he said. "Then why are you here?" Leon pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Because there's someone else who needs help." He handed it to me. I unfolded it. It was a name, an address, a company. "Who is this?" "Someone in the same position you were in, being used, being positioned to take a fall." I looked at the paper, then at Leon. "What do you want me to do?" "What you did for yourself. Pay attention, ask questions, don't let them get away with it." I sat down. "Why don't you help them?" Leon smiled. "Because I'm just a homeless man. Nobody listens to me." "But they'll listen to me." "Yes." I looked at the name again, then I nodded. "All right." Leon stood up. "Thank you, Sorren." "For what?" "For seeing me." He walked to the door. "Leon?" He turned. "Will I see you again?" He smiled. "When someone needs a warning." Then he left. I sat in my office with the paper in my hands. I thought about what Leon had asked me to do. I thought about the person whose name was on that paper, someone invisible, someone being used, someone who deserved better. I picked up my phone and dialed Morrison. "It's Sorren Valden," I said. "I need to talk to you about a new case." She listened. When I finished, she said, "I'll look into it." "Thank you." I hung up. Then I looked at the paper one more time. The name stared back at me. I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. Tomorrow I'd start asking questions. Tomorrow I'd start paying attention. Tonight I'd go home. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked to the door. The office was quieter now. Most people had already left. I took the elevator down to the lobby. The security guard nodded at me. "Have a good night, Mr. Valden." "You too." I walked outside. The courthouse steps were empty. I stood there for a moment, looking at the spot where Leon used to sit. Then I turned and walked toward home. The street was crowded. Rush hour, people everywhere. Nobody looked at me. But that was okay. I didn't need to be seen. I just needed to see. And I did. I saw the man in the dark jacket standing across the street. I saw the woman on her phone, tracking someone. I saw the patterns, the invisible threads connecting people who thought they were alone. I saw it all, and tomorrow I'd do something about it. I walked through the crowd, feeling the weight of Leon's paper in my pocket, feeling the responsibility of knowing what to look for, feeling for the first time in my life like I mattered. Not because people saw me, but because I saw them. I turned the corner and disappeared into the city. Behind me, the courthouse stood silent. The steps were empty. But somewhere, someone was sitting on cold stone, waiting, watching, ready to warn the next person who needed it. And I'd be ready too.